Hi. Justin, are you in here? Can you hear me? Tell me how it's going. You're going to go lay down and be back in the chat. Okay. That is my fault. That is absolutely my fault. I kept bumping it, but there's a lot to go over. So I'm going to let a couple more people come in before we get started. If you didn't already save the clips, it's kind of like screenshots, I guess. I haven't figured out how to upload like a Word doc to X yet. I don't even know if you can. Go grab those because they're going to be really good tools tonight. I'll let a couple more people come on in. We'll see. For the two who are in here, I don't know if your supporters are bots, but thank you for being in here. These times, hey, Bonnie, how are you? And just bear with me if you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, why not? Go ahead and subscribe. But this channel is relatively new, so I'm kind of putting out content just when I can. Also, I am a full-time lawyer, so work is ebbing and flowing, and we also have all the other podcasters that have their regular time. So I'm just kind of going whenever right now. It's nice because sometimes our international friends are able to hop in here. I think I started one at 6:20 in the morning, and that was probably my highest viewed. I was really surprised. Hey, oh my gosh, you guys, thank you for being here because I know it's a weird time. It's kind of like a set your alarm, set your notifications because we're going to do this thing. How is everybody? I don't really either. Okay, so I sleep hard for hours and then I'm up. But I love sleep. Lord, no kids. Good. Time the world sleeps. Yeah, me too, honeybee. Me too. It's like I do so much better when I know my email's not going to be popping off or my text. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish I could be a normal human being and go to sleep at a normal time. But I get like sleep anxiety or something. But I mean, I sleep for like 12 hours straight. I'll let a couple more people fall in here. So I'm going to try this format, a different format tonight. So up until now, I've been going through, our presentation or whatever we're talking about. I've been consulting the chat and talking to you guys and building it out because there aren't very many people in here. However, of course, I know on the playback that gets really frustrating because I'm not getting to the point or they can't see the chat as it's going on. So tonight I'm going to do it more Candace and Baron style. And I am going to just do the whole thing. And then I will release you from class if you want to go, or you can stay and hang out and we can chat a little bit. But we can hang out for a minute. Oh, I'm glad you work nights. 3:30 for you, and it's 6:35 p.m. Oh, honeybee, I sleep 12 to 14 hours as well. I love it. I love it so much, but I also can't just do it at any time. Okay, stop. Listen, this does not help me. It really doesn't. It's actually also full of B vitamins. If you read what it is, it's really just essentially a bunch of B vitamins. What I really need is another coffee, but I ran out of time. Yeah, me too, Orion. It doesn't like caffeine does not help me stay awake, but it is required so I don't fall asleep. And I know some of y'all will understand that. It's like a baseline kind of thing. Like I have to take my meds, but I'm also glad I'm not one of those people who is affected by caffeine because I wouldn't be able to handle it. I will say, I think where you get your caffeine from is totally different because it only bothers me whenever I drink black tea. And then it's like, oh my gosh. Hi, California. I split my time between California and the South. So right now I am 2 hours ahead of you, Kim. Yeah, accidental narcolepsy. Listen, my grandmother is a narcoleptic, and I'm like, I don't know, I might be because it's at random. I just get so tired, I can go to sleep, but then other times it's like, I can't. You just have to embrace it. You just have to embrace sleep. And oddly enough, people like us bring on babies a lot easier because we're just used to being up and down. And it's like, okay, I can sleep right now. I can sleep later. I can be up now. So interestingly enough, it does work out. Let me see what y'all are talking about. Oh, Jordy, is Leah out and about? Out and about, as if she's like out and about on X. Man, okay, here's the thing though with narcolepsy is if you get a diagnosis, they have to take your license away, your driver's license. But y'all are my original gang. Yeah. Yeah. I've also seen it on the attorney side where someone had narcolepsy and was driving, and most of the time, like they were fine, but then they did fall asleep. But you know what's interesting is like that is kind of like one of those kind of predictable things. I've seen people get sued for having heart attacks while driving because they knew they were at high risk. So, okay. 2 kids that keep me running around, so I'm exhausted. Yes, yes. Once everybody shuts the F up and goes to sleep. Last week about conditional epilepsy. Asked you, sir. Huh. Well, I've always been a napper, but I can only nap for 20 to 30 minutes. I could never nap much longer than that. And if anybody is on replay, you just need to hold on for a couple minutes before we get into it, because right now we're live and people are kind of falling into the chat, and then we'll jump into it. Oh yeah. I mean, they could solve any mystery, let's be real, except for this one. So with my first big firm, I used to bring a yoga mat, and on the inside of the building, the innermost room of the building, it's almost like a tornado thing. There were no windows in that office. And so I would go in there behind my boss's desk because the door had a window like to the outside hall. But other than that, it was the most quiet, cold room ever. And he was always gone. So I would just lay my yoga mat out like behind his desk and just snooze for 20 to 30 minutes. I'd bring a heavy blanket and like nobody would know where I was. It was fantastic. Okay, so tonight, this is what we're going to do. I think a number of y'all were here for part 1 of the series going through the evidence at trial, what was admitted, what was not, kind of a critique. And what we did was we really talked about the physical evidence more than anything, other than we left out the DNA because we're going to do that later. My background is in biology, so I'm really pumped to help you guys understand that. And then the forensic ballistics testing by the ATF expert. She's probably my favorite person in this entire thing. And what I have done is I've gone back and forth through all of the preliminary hearing stuff over and over. I am so sick of it. I just want to like throw up whenever I look at it. But so tonight, what we're going to do, because this needed a whole hour at least of its own. And this is tracing the movements of the suspect. I don't want to call him Tyler. We're just going to say the suspect around campus that day. Because I don't know about y'all, but whenever I heard it, at first I was tracking. And then the way in which they were saying it was Agent Hull. He's with SBI. The way he was talking about it right in the middle got really confusing, and none of us had a map. I don't know directions. Like, I did laugh because I think Jennifer Baumina was up, and the attorney was like, "Is North up on this map?" And she's like, "Yes." But I mean, we don't have any context. So they were showing us videos, but as you know, like those bumped around, and I was like, this is nuts. I gotta lay this out. And I will tell you guys, I had to keep on pushing this back because of confusion on my end. DNA is the fun part, and they royally botched that. Agent, no, not Hull, Hull. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to roll through this. On X, I put a screenshot of a map of the campus, and then I also took a screenshot, 2 of them, of these notes. And it's just a timeline. So definitely consult those if you need to as we jump around. And then let's go ahead and get through it. I'm not going to make y'all sit through the video. We've all seen videos a million times. But let's do it, and then we'll come back around at the end and talk. Okay. Yeah. They have gotten sentenced to life with a lack of DNA evidence, or, later on they found out it was somebody else. But the thing is, it's 2026, and the methodologies they used are just, they're not the best in the practice, and these were FBI labs, so it's uncalled for. All right, here we go. Okay. So this is a timeline of the suspects' movements across UVU on the date in question, and I'm going to drag this over here so it looks like I'm looking at y'all. Here we go. Okay. So the way I did this was I put all of the testimony into a graph or a chart, and I designated each person's testimony or the information we gleaned from them into different colors. So the way we're going to do this tonight is we're going to go chronologically, and we're breaking it down hour by hour. But before we get into his movements across campus, I wanted to give you guys some of the backstory from what Lance was saying. Okay. So this will be just a good warm up for what we already know. So we don't even have a time on here yet. And let's see, if you can't see this, if it's not big enough, then go ahead and consult the notes I put up on X. So as y'all know, Lance was being interviewed. There was no opportunity to cross-examine him. But I thought that some of these things were relevant to what we were going to discuss tonight. So he says that Tyler had asked him for a Dremel, like that's the engraving tool, for probably a month prior to 9/10, because he was going to go hunting. He was on a camping trip. Well, Tyler was intending to do this with his dad and his brothers. And Lance says that he knew Tyler as early as 2023. And that was because Lance's friends had invited Tyler to play online games with them. They're all gamers. And it's interesting to me because Lance makes it kind of very clear that his friends are different from Tyler's friends. It's just, I know in relationships we bring different friends in, but if they're all doing the same thing like gaming, it's a little odd to me. You don't consider them your friends. And then Tyler moves in with Lance, and I believe it's Lance's family who owns the apartment. We don't know when he moved in. That would have been a nice thing for the defense to ask, to give us kind of more of a timeline. I'm assuming it's after 2023 because that's when they first kind of knew of each other. But Tyler moves in, and then they begin dating about a month or two later. And another thing is that we have been told this narrative of it being a furry trans boyfriend. He is definitely not. And he doesn't even really seem to want to talk about them dating. So he just kind of drops that. He tells the attorney that Tyler didn't really talk about politics very much, especially not transgender rights. And if ever, he might have talked about Trump and different policies that they had been voting on, and that he specifically never heard him talk about Charlie Kirk. So this to me was not what we were all expecting, especially because I think most of us believe that this was a setup, and I think that Tyler and Lance were plants for sure. Okay, and then he says basically that the Dremel that he had given him was in the bottom floor basement. And when they showed Lance the pictures of Tyler, he said because of low camera quality, he really couldn't tell from the first couple pictures, but that the bottom two did kind of look like him. So that's our backstory here. Okay, so we know that Charlie Kirk was assassinated on the 10th. We also know that Lance says that Tyler slept in the apartment the night before. So 9/9 rolling into 9/10, and that's what you have here on your chart. And then at about between maybe like 4 and 5 the next morning on September 10th is when Lance thinks he heard Tyler leave for work. Tyler was doing some electrical work and construction, and he was also in school for that, a trade school. Okay, so this is our very first movement on campus that we hear about. And I have on the side, I've got just clips of this timeline as they are relevant to the specific map we're looking at. Okay, so we all know that this starts with the video of the Dodge Charger that's entering the building. And Agent Hull says it has distinct wheels, which I don't even know what that means because I looked at others and there was really nothing distinct about them. And that this parking garage was the one that was located off Campus Drive, which is just a short walk to the amphitheater. So if you see that first square, not the first one, but the one that's higher up, you can see that it encompasses the parking garage. You know what's interesting about this is that you have to pay to get in it. They have other parking lots on campus. You can see some of the different ones, and they will kind of tell you if you have to have a permit or if it's paid parking. So it looks to me like it was paid parking. So why don't we have that information? Lovely of them to leave it out. Whatever. So he pulls in about 8:29, and then he keeps talking as if the suspect gets right out of his car. But we know that we don't really see him until 9:42 when he gets out of his car, walks out of the parking garage, and goes down to the quad. So there is that's nearly an hour, 8:29 to 9:24. About an hour, whoever that is sitting there in that car. Well, he also says that when the suspect got out of the car and walked down the parking garage, he went to the quad or to where the amphitheater is, where TPUSA was setting up, and that he spoke to TPUSA, someone from TPUSA. No further questions from the defense. No further questions. Who was it? What did they talk about? How did they remember it was him? How do they know? Like, this is the most odd thing to me. And it was at this point that whenever I was going back and forth between it, I really lost all hope that they might be in this to win it for him. I have no idea what their plan is, but that's just, why wouldn't you ask that? Anyways, moving on. So pretty quickly, he returns to his vehicle, and then we see him, the Charger pulling out of the parking garage at 9:33. So we have pictures there, but you can see the square on the bottom. That is the amphitheater, the courtyard, the quad, whatever you want to call it. And then I have a little line drawn there. So you can see some kind of route similar to that is what he must have taken to get down there. And we've all seen these. These are just still shots. And here you can't really zoom in on the time, but I certainly have, worked that into the timeline. And you see him coming down the stairs here. This over here on the left is nearly a whole hour before here on the other side. And then here we see him pulling out of the garage about 9:33. Okay. So then, now this gets kind of crazy. I want you to start with the arrow that is pointing to the top square. Because Hull testifies that the suspect comes back onto campus on foot from the northeast neighborhood. So that's what that arrow represents. And at this time, he's still wearing the same clothes, a blue backpack. And it seems to me that he enters through the parking garage on foot. And then he goes over to the Sorensen's building, which is the next building down with the next red square. So he moves from the parking garage, goes and eats Chick-fil-A, apparently. We have no footage of that, no receipts, nothing. And that's why I think it was also confusing for people, because we're like, wait, what? Like, where's he going? What's going on? Okay, because at this time, he, I just want to say too, like, what was he doing for 45 minutes? Because Agent Hull says that at about 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock, he walks off campus. So that's what that arrow is that's jutting out from the Sorensen's building. He says that he walks off campus drive, walks across campus drive. You can see the arrow is crossing campus drive into a wooded area, which is probably, but nobody specified, the same wooded area where they find the rifle. I'm just guessing. Okay. And then he returns back to campus and he doesn't have a backpack on. So we are left to assume that the backpack was dropped in the wooded area. And the way that Agent Hull said this is that he returned to campus and he had to go through the Gunther and the computer science building. So you'll see that coming back on to campus across campus drive to go through the Gunther building and the computer science building. You would have to go through Gunther first and then computer science if you're for your next move, right? Because he's about to go and cross Losi. So you couldn't just come back onto campus, go through computer science and then Gunther building and then all the way over there to Losi. I guess you could, but there are a lot of questions that defense absolutely should have asked. Okay, so we know that he does at about 11 o'clock kind of walk past the Losi Center because we see him do that. What is confusing to me is that he's coming down the pathway that is actually opposite of the direction that he's going to. It's difficult to say, but my point is it's not really clear, and I listened to it multiple times. Okay. And these are some of the pictures. We've seen them all, so there's no point in making you do this. But yeah, you can see on the right that he is allegedly coming down that furthest side of the Losi Center, but yet Hull was testifying that he came from the Gunther building and the computer science building, and he must have had to walk around the Losi Center and then come up this side because it doesn't make sense. And it's not our fault that it doesn't make sense. The defense should have clarified. So now I'm even more and more suspect as we go along. Okay. So go back to the very top where he's kind of in a wooded area, and you see the arrow pointing to the parking garage. All right, so follow me here. And the red square below is the courtyard where Charlie is at. And when he makes an entrance onto the campus, whenever he enters campus this time, this is when the event is going to take place. So let's track this. Okay, so at 11:53, he returns to campus with his backpack, right? And different clothing and a limp. We've seen that. So we're assuming he went back to the wooded area, wherever he stored his backpack the first time, picked it up, and he comes back. And in here, I just had that between 12 and 1, Lance states that he woke up around this time and that Tyler had sent a group text on Discord, but not directly that day to him until about 11 p.m. That just ended up in the timeline. So overlook that for a minute. It kind of discombobulates everything. So he's in the parking garage, and then about 12:02, he walks south in front of the Low-C building, and we've all seen that one. So you can, if you go out from the parking garage and you walk right between that green M20 and the Low-C Center, the arrow pointing towards the University Police, that's where we're at here. At some point, he enters the roof. There's the walkway right there. That's where the arrow is pointing. He's on the rooftop about 12:17. Interestingly enough, at 12:21, the Colorado school shooting happened. That was something interesting that I talked about last night. Was this event supposed to be similar to that? The timing was almost down to the minute. Anyways, 12:22, our suspect is crouching on the roof, and then we see him running. So you can see that arrow go across the Low-C Center. And then at 12:23 is whenever Charlie is wounded. And then we know that he bolts in that opposite direction, and that's what that arrow indicates right there. He jumps off, Spider-Man's off the roof, and then runs across Campus Drive and drops into the wooded area. So I'm assuming, which we should never have to assume, we should have clear answers about this. I don't know why they didn't clarify. It's not up to the prosecution really to clarify. They should, but the defense should have spoken up because nobody knows what's going on here. Okay, and so that's what happened on campus. And then we will go through just a couple things on this timeline that are important, and I want to show you guys a couple things too. Let's see. Okay. Do you guys remember when Lance said that he didn't get a text from Tyler that night until 11? And this 11 o'clock text was supposed to be an automatic text that Tyler had set up just in case he was in a shootout or whatever. Well, the way it's phrased here is as if he forgot to take that off, the automatic messaging off, because you see it at about 11. It says, drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard, which is where he left that note, right? And he says, what? You're joking. And then that's when Tyler says, F, I tried to delete that. Well, Tyler. They keep on going on and on. And even Agent Davis said, no, that's the first time that Tyler texted him all day. But look up. This is what's crazy to me. At 4:33 p.m., he says, I love you, mwah, mwah. And then he, Lance returns it. Nobody talked about that. And it's brought up right here. It's like they keep on putting evidence in our faces just to rub it in. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why defense didn't ask about that, because that would clearly be after the shooting. So wanted to bring that up. But let me go through here. Let's see. We just basically have Agent Hull and Baumina, the FBI agent who found the gun later. They show up. Then we have 4:33, those texts I just showed you that nobody talked about. Let's see, Agent Hull doesn't go onto the roof until after dark. Let me see. Well, we can go to this. So 11 o'clock is when they start to say that this text exchange started, and the screenshots are all over the internet if y'all want to find them. But really, Tyler says he's still in Orem. These are all those like oddly like old English poetic love letter type messages. It was just really, really odd. He says that basically he's waiting there to grab his gun, but there's still a squad car. He's been planning it for a week, and he's saying how annoying this is going to be because he's not going to be able to get the gun until about 3 a.m. Then he has to drive back and go into work, which we know that the drive is about 3.5 hours. He just talks about how he's going to sit there and watch reels for a while, and now he's worried because he can't find the rifle. So it's like he went back. But the questions that Lance was asking were just so inappropriate in this moment. They didn't have any emotion to them. They didn't have any, they weren't questions you'd be asking your boyfriend or girlfriend in a moment like this. And so I have to wonder if those questions were asked because it wasn't Tyler on the other end, and it was just prompting a response to fit, for this kind of evidence coming up. Let's see. Is that what we got here? Let's keep going down just a little bit. So it's still the 10th, right? And then midnight, it strikes midnight, and now it's 12:30. And at 12:30 is when they say that there's an interaction with the suspect and a police officer at that corner, and that the officer got a partial plate number. Okay. What's interesting is that they never talked about how there were 3 additional people in that car. And they don't talk about how the officer could have said that, or, his interaction. This is the problem with not bringing people in. But at 12:38, that's whenever Mrs. Noble's Ring doorbell was caught footage of a similar car. She said a bald man was driving and 3 passengers. And then we roll over into the morning. So that is of 9/11. And Lance says that Tyler was up doing things around the house. Lance said he would come home to do laundry because he didn't want Tyler going to his parents' house because there were probably cops outside. So Lance says that he leaves his parents' house, goes home. Tyler is walking around a lot, nervous. He said it was true that he had done it, starts crying, and wishes that he hadn't have done it, and that he's going to talk to his parents and turn himself in. So they say goodbye. Lance says Tyler drives away, and Lance then goes back over to his parents' house. Let's see. And then at 8 p.m. that night is the alleged last text of him telling him and his friends that he's going to turn himself in. So that was at 8, and it was on Discord. But one of the witnesses messed up and said that the text messages with Tyler go until the 12th. And I rewound it. I did hear that right. And they do. They go until the 12th, but we don't get to see him. That's also weird if he's already turned himself in and he's in jail. How in the world? This whole thing is just so upside down. Let me see if there's anything else. The rest of it is just the timeline of them questioning Tyler and his parents. There you go. And then Mike Mitchell, who was the former law enforcement friend, also former Boy Scout leader for Tyler, who helped assist him in turning himself in. He was formally arrested sometime after midnight. So it would have been on 9/12 that he was arrested. And then he was booked around 8 a.m. the next morning. And so then really what's left here is the search warrants for Tyler's house and his parents' house. So that is the end of that presentation, but I hope that maybe clarified some things as to his alleged movements. It was certainly tricky for me. So I'm going to jump into the comments now. If you are replaying this, you are welcome to leave if you don't want to stay, but I'm going to see what y'all said, if anything. Pulling up. Oh, and by the way, you know, whenever they questioned Lance the night that Tyler turned himself in, they only took pictures of his phone. They did not confiscate Lance's phone. To me, is crazy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mary, yeah, everything did happen during lunchtime. Yeah. Anna, thank you, girl. I'm glad you're in here. I'm just scrolling down, seeing what y'all thought. Yeah, they are straight stock wheels. Get crunk. I agree with you. Like, what's special about them? Clip jumps after clip jumps. That's right. That's why I didn't want to put you guys through it. Oh, it is a Challenger? I called it a Charger too. Right. Okay. Good call. Walking up the first steps. See the front of a van pull up right, yeah, to the bottom. So it looks like Tyler turn around. So, yeah. Yeah, he could have been anywhere. Apparently he was in the bushes. That's what they want us to think. Eyes on Tice. You can go to X and just, I uploaded them. It was a screenshot. It wouldn't let me do documents or anything. So you can just open it up and then screenshot it. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. It's not it. Let's see. All right, I'm reading Lord No Kids. Do you think the defense didn't argue these things because they want the weak evidence instead of making them find stronger evidence? No, I don't know, because this would be the opportunity, if they're going to get out of it, to the defense should have brought their best game. And there are just some things that make no sense as to why they didn't ask it. I mean, I'm shocked they didn't have them clarify the timeline. It was so confusing. But anything, or TPUSA, they didn't even have them ask TPUSA or whatever what was said, who said it. Yeah, honeybee. I think the FBI has an affinity for hiding things in the woods. Yeah. This case ever said it, the forensics embedded. No. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Jordy makes a really good point. Have they ever said if the forensics examiner vetted the cell phone messages and verified they're credible, came from their phones? No. No. There was a Cellbrite extraction on Lance's phone in April of this year. So when this happened in September, all they did was take a picture of the cell phone, like text that could have been anybody, to be honest. I don't know why they didn't have that extracted at the time, so they waited. And also, Agent Davis, I don't know if he intentionally lied, but he said the first time that Tyler had texted Lance on the 9th, 10th, was at 8. Yeah, on the 10th was at 8, but no, it was at 4:43. And you know what? Remember whenever Tyler was saying this really sucks, I'm going to have to come in and drive and go to work, assuming that's he's not going to have any sleep. But then Lance turns around and says, yeah, whenever I heard him up and moving around the house, like, did he just go to work and already come home and that's what happened? It just doesn't make sense to me unless he drove straight from UVU, went to work, and then was off by, I don't know, noon or so. But that's not the schedule that Lance had said. And if I were the defense, I also would have been asking, since y'all confiscated Tyler's phone, did you guys verify that it was also on his phone? Because it should be. But they didn't say that. Yeah. No forensics examination of the cell phones other than, extract the one extraction they did. They didn't know it's going to trial. Do you think the defense didn't argue about the bad evidence because they want them to feel like it's going to be? No, I don't think that they didn't argue with them to give them like some false sense of hope, because that would be jeopardizing a lot to get your client, to set your client free. The prosecution is supposed to bring their best evidence, and then the defense is supposed to defend it. Like, this is why it just blows my mind, because some of these questions are so simple, yet they argued the most irrelevant things, and that were like going beyond the preliminary hearing standard. But these kind of questions wouldn't have. Yeah, Jordy, I agree. First thing I do is I do that as well. I ask for forensic evidence, send in, preservation of evidence letter. Yeah, defense may have their hands tied. You're so welcome, Zoosh. Oh, everybody's seen a better CSI crime scene. This is, quite frankly, one of the worst I've seen. Yeah. Trash, I could do that. The thing is that the all those goofy texts and stuff kind of all happen together, and there's nothing else that's going on at the time. So that's why I didn't include all of them here, because I didn't want to just fill up the screen. But y'all know how crazy they were. But that was happening shortly after, or right before midnight. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Trash. It looks better when you screenshot it. It's definitely an odd conversion whenever you put it on a PowerPoint. They did waste a bunch of time, yeah, on irrelevant stuff. The judge doesn't want to rock the boat. No, I don't know. I was thinking that this thing would likely head to trial, but I don't know now. I really don't. Oh, Cellbrite is owned by our greatest ally. Oh, wow. Well, that's something to note. Oh, I'm sure that the defense team, look, every attorney who's involved with something big, you have to either accept the danger or not, because you can't live in fear. And this is a very scary world we're living in, with defending and suing people like this. Yeah. More to that property the gun was planted on. Yeah. I mean, they could have, you're asking about coworkers. You could have interviewed anybody. Hey, the real one. Thanks for the shout out on your podcast a couple days ago. I was listening to it today. I was like, oh, that's me. Yeah, both sides are not doing well. I don't think either side wanted it. Yeah, I mean, I cannot believe with the murder of Charlie Kirk that they interviewed Lance that night and they let him go, but all they did was take pictures of his screen. Like, they didn't do the Cellbrite extraction until probably April of the next year. And nobody even asked about Tyler's phone. We just know that it was taken whenever he went into custody. Oh, good, Jordy. I'm glad to hear that. How horrific. Is the property up? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, Jordy. Yeah, I mean, even for non-lawyers, I think you can see why this is so egregious, wild. It's like a dark comedy. Is it a comedy? It's a joke. Yeah, me too, that they didn't keep him for longer in questioning. You know what? They didn't seem to question Twiggs's parents either, even though they own the house. Or on Charlie's phone, right? Exactly. They gave it to Erika. Yeah, so a lot of questions. Every time I turn around, I'm finding new questions about this. And I hope that that timeline, the maps and such, helped you kind of like put it together. But yeah, what was he doing first of all, what was he doing in his car for an hour in the parking garage? Who did he go talk to at TPUSA? These are all very relevant things, and the defense didn't cross-examine them on this. What was said? How does TPUSA know it was him? Remember that it's him? See some of the other ones I had. Why did Agent Davis lie and say that the first time that Tyler had texted Lance was at 8:00 on the 10th, when clearly what they introduced into evidence shows they were texting little love notes at like 4:30. If it was him, I don't know. Yeah. And then the weird text messages, I don't think that almost seems like it was between the same person, because he was purposefully asking the oddest questions about, isn't your dad going to be mad? And then he would give this long explanation. And it just doesn't seem like a natural conversation that's going on. Very insulting. Yeah. Yeah, no ambulance. Oh. Not knowing who's on the roof. He can get in trouble for lying about it, but maybe he doesn't. That one is an easy way to wiggle out of, because he could just say he didn't remember. What's crazy to me is that the penalty of perjury here is a misdemeanor, not a felony. Those 1102 statements they had them asking, they were asking about, it's basically letting somebody know that you can, if you purge yourself with a statement, you're up against a misdemeanor, but it's like, it should be a felony. It's crazy. Well, I think the TPUSA rep didn't have to be used at pretrial to ID Tyler because Tyler could be identified by the officers who interviewed him. Yeah, it's covering up for a lot. Oh, yeah. No, they definitely did not try, in my opinion, did not try to save his life at all. They did everything wrong. Like everything that you shouldn't do, they definitely did. Oh, yeah. The rabbit hole, there are tunnels and tunnels and tunnels. Oh, yeah. The timeline of Bagley is weird to me because he says, like, well, basically, he's across, the Hall of Flags and then the Losi Center. He should have seen the guy. Pretty sure he did. Because then after he goes down into the courtyard, he suddenly realizes that it was a rifle, not a handgun. Well, we knew, that it sounded more like a rifle anyways. But, and then he looks up to the Losi Center. Like, how would you know that that's where it came from? You could guess, but what a great guess, bro. Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thanks for being here. Yeah. And what's the deal with them not showing footage of Chick-fil-A? Why is that so hard for them to do? And it could just be that the prosecution didn't show it. They decided not to. But when you are trying to get over the hump of probable cause and there's so many holes in your story, you're supposed to, it's almost like a chain of custody with a human. It's like you need to show every single step. And if y'all knew that he went across the street so many times into a wooded area, show the footage. Also, show the footage of him at Chick-fil-A. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the stairway person. I don't. Well, the person on the roof is not. One, didn't pull a trigger. Two, I don't think it was Tyler. I would even put more money on Lance. It being Lance, and it always could have been. It could have been Lance in the Dodge Challenger. Heck, it could be anybody really. And you have to remember too, they're using masks and such these days. It's terrifying. But the way this guy somersaulted off the roof, I just don't think that was Tyler. Okay. Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. I wish I had his metabolism. I know. It could have been somebody going to chemistry class, right? And you see when he's coming back onto campus, going down into the parking garage, and he's on foot. I think it looked like a cell phone in his pocket, but I think they wanted us to think that was the butt of the gun. And these things are heavy. You don't think it's that heavy until you try not to hold it with your hands and shove it down your pants. There's no way. The scope is huge. The distribution of the weight is too much. There's no way you could, if you wanted to try it at home and make sure that it's clear, like how are you going to do that in skinny jeans? It's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. Good point. Faking a limp. That was the most fake limp I've ever seen, by the way. It's like when your animal wants sympathy. Yeah. For 10 months, we were like, where's the evidence? Yeah, agreed. He's not built that way. He's just a skinny kid. I don't think he was either, Nikki. I don't think he even knew what was going on until I would like to know what he told his mom and dad. I mean, they still never entered any kind of admission from him. Oh, goodness. That's funny. Okay, y'all, I'm going to let you out of here. We're going to go. Thank you for being here. Love you guys. Make sure if you're not subscribed that you subscribe. And we will do the third part as soon as I can get it out. And it's going to be over the DNA in the forensics. So thanks for being here, y'all. If you have anything that you want me to consider or look at, or you need to get it in front of somebody because it's just like eating up with what you found, definitely send it over to me on X, and I would love to have it. Oh, you didn't? You got it, Prunella? Make sure you're subscribed and you turn on the notifications. You might need to check like how the notifications come in, maybe. Pimpin' it easy, yeah. Yeah, y'all have an incredible rest of your night, and you are so welcome. Zush Christ. Love y'all. Bye.